Listen, I'm going to say something. I'm going to say it real fast, and I mean what I said, and I'm saying it because I mean it. The church is not supposed to do everything. There are some things that you may be expecting the church to do that you're supposed to do. And I want to talk to you about it in this video. So listen, I lead this community called Bible U, and it's just this incredible community, and it's this tribe that we're forming of people who say, listen, if I'm gonna be all that I want to be spiritually, God is enough, but Sunday's not. And that there is some information and some information that I need that I'm not gonna get through typical programming at a church. And watch this, there's a community that I want to be surrounded by who has a hunger level that matches mine. Because in a church space, it is whosoever will, let them come. So everybody should be welcomed and not judged for wherever they are on their spiritual journey. Yet at the same time, there are people who are in environments like local churches that need to be in community with people who have similar hunger. And so part of what we try to do in Bible U is to kind of create that environment to say, hey, this is what we want to do, is we want to take the quality of kind of content that you would get in a Bible college, and we want to put that in a program and in a format where it's in the language of and relevant for the everyday Christian. And that's kind of what we did. And so here's the point though. What Bible U is, watch this, and I'm a senior pastor, but here's what I want you to see. What Bible U is it is a reflection of what the institutional church is not supposed to do. Now, am I saying churches shouldn't have some of these programs? Of course they should. Like, we got a program called Change College. Here's my point. The point that I'm making is there are times where people have frustration because they got expectations of what an institutional church should be doing. Not realizing and recognizing, listen to me, that God meets the needs of the world, listen to me please, through the body of Christ, not through the programming of institutional churches. Now, I don't want to play a semantics game here. So when I say the body of Christ, of course the body of Christ is the ecclesia. So the body of Christ is the church, right? But that we can use, let's use some sociological nuances to a theological organization. And so let's just say you got extended family and nuclear family, right? Same with the church. You got the gathered church and the scattered church. So the whole body of Christ all over the world, we the church. But for Matthew 28:19, the Great Commission to be accomplished, there's got to be local assemblies of churches in specific spaces that are carrying out their unique contribution to the Great Commission. So when I'm talking about the institution of the church, that's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about the whole body of Christ. And I'm saying that there are people who feel strongly about what institutional churches are supposed to be doing. And I'm like, they're not really supposed to be doing all of that if they're not called to that. Should they be discipling? Yes. Should there be pre-conversion and post-conversion discipleship? Yes. Should there be like worship gatherings? Yes. Should there be outreach? Yes. Should there be service? Yes. But there are specific needs that exist in the world that are not going to be met through the institutional church. And I'm telling you, they're not supposed to be. So you may be wondering, Dharius, well, who's supposed to meet them? You. That's your ministry. You know what we call that in Bible U? We call it gap ministry. That there are gaps that exist, meaning that there are needs that exist in the world. And those needs will not always be met through the programming of the institutional church. But those needs can be met, listen to me, those needs can be met through the ministry that comes through people in the body of Christ who are willing to fill those gaps. As a matter of fact, when Paul's writing to believers in Ephesus in Ephesians 4:11, Paul says this, fam. Paul says, and he gave apostles, prophets, evangelists, pastors, and teachers for the equipping or perfecting of the saints for what? The work of the ministry. So in Paul's mind, it's the saints, it's the people that should be doing ministry. Now, you guys have been hearing me say this forever. Is that ministry done inside the context of programming of local churches? Sure. Is that the only place it's supposed to be done? Absolutely not. No, sir. No, ma'am. There are gaps that exist in the world. And what happens is sometimes people attempt to superimpose their ministry assignment on institutions in local church, on the institutions of a local church. So for example, there are people who literally are Christians suffering with addictions. So there's substance abuse and they're dealing with addictions. Now, do churches have programs like Celebrate Recovery and things of that nature? Yes. Is the institution of a church equipped to deal with, generally speaking, are there exceptions? Yes, but generally speaking, is an institution of a church equipped to deal with the realities, like all of the comprehensive realities that people deal with when they're detaching from substance abuse? I've seen this, I've seen it in my family. I know what happens biologically when a person's coming off a chemical and what their body goes through. And what their body goes through alone requires a degree of expertise that the average pastor is not gonna have. And that members in that congregation might not have. There might not be people in that congregation. I was reared and raised in Kilmichael, Mississippi, guys. I think at that time when I was raised there might have been 800 people in that whole city. Yeah, so no matter what churches that you went to, there were gonna be some needs. Like if a church is 50 people, there are gonna be some needs that those 50 people, they're a need that one of the 50 had that the other 49 were not equipped to reach or not equipped to meet. So there's a gap, right? There's a need that someone has. Then there's a limitation that the institution, God doesn't have any, but there's a limitation that the institutional church has in terms of the kind of expertise that it takes to deal with the issue like substance abuse. So what do you need? You need gap ministry. You need people who are equipped to deal with that, who understand that, who have started centers, who started rehab treatment programs, who have the insight and the expertise and the income to actually say, hey, this is our job to come in and to fill the gap. Do you know that the quality of your life is based on the quality of your decisions? And the quality of your decisions is based on the quality of information that you have. So that means you need reliable sources of information, and the most reliable source of information in the world is the Bible. But you know what? Most people don't understand it. And if you want to understand the Bible, God is enough, but Sunday is not. I want to help you understand. I want to help you interpret and apply. I want to help you explain the Bible better. This is why I'm inviting you to be a part of my tribe called Bible U. There are certain types of trauma that people have gone through. And what do we need? We need the gap ministry of counseling. I remember when I first started off in pastoral ministry, guys, y'all got to remember, I'm in my mid-20s, early 20s, when I'm doing this, and I'm having these one-on-one counseling sessions with people time after time after time. And then I'm literally listening to some of the stuff that people are sharing. And I'm like, you know, what I can offer them is spiritual advising. Now, we've been trained in pastoral counseling in seminary, but I'm listening to what some of these people are sharing. I'm like, this is deep rooted. This is like, mama neglected me. This person abused me. I was like, this is not beyond God. It's beyond me. And so we had to form partnerships. We created this consortium of partnerships with people who did substance abuse and people who did family therapy and people who did psychiatry, not just psychology, psychiatry. So we formed this consortium so that when there were needs that came to us that we knew we were not equipped to meet, we didn't play around with people's needs. We knew that there were people that would fill in those gaps. And so what I want you to know and what I want you to wrap your head around is, what gap are you supposed to fill? Maybe you're sitting idly by waiting on the institution of the church to do something. And God's like, I'm gonna do that through the church, but I'm gonna do that through the body of Christ, not through a program in an institutional church. So the church is going to do it, but not the institution of a church that's delivering the ministry in the form of a program. I'm going to do that through a gap ministry. That's what Bible U is. It's a gap ministry. It's like, you know what? This probably doesn't quite fit within the context of a local church, because very few people in the context of a local church are going to have this kind of hunger. Yet at the same time, it is a need for people that are in local churches. So how can we create something that fills that gap? That's what Daniel's DNA is. It's a gap ministry. It is, people need more than spiritual development. They need personal development. You can be full of faith, but if you're not focused, you know how to manage your time, you know how to create an ideal week, you don't know how to create margin, you're not going to experience the John 10:10 life. You can say, I've been gifted, I'm going to change the world. Well, if you don't know how to cultivate and acquire character traits that take you to the next level personally, and if you don't learn the skills of being able to coach somebody, or if you don't learn how to learn the skill of being able to take what's in your head and articulate it out of your mouth to somebody else who needs your insight, your experience, and your expertise, your education, you're not changing anybody's life. A church isn't going to have a speaking program. Some may, but generally speaking, they're not going to have a speaking program. But somebody can, because they're filling in a gap. And the ministry that God may have given you is a gap filling ministry. The church isn't supposed to do everything. You have to fill the gap. I'll see you in the gap.